I hope that you'll all enjoy the day, as all is finding it very informative. We've got quite an incredible sort of array of speakers, really, from some very diverse backgrounds, politically and socially. I'll just outline briefly how the day is going to be run. It's going to be 4 sessions. In the morning, we're going to carry on until about 1 o'clock, and then we can go over to the common room, just across here, where there'll be rolls and sandwiches, fruit and yogurts and so forth, and teas and coffees. That'll carry on until about 2 o'clock. We've got a tight schedule, so we need to try and eat and get back fairly soon. So the second session will start at 2 o'clock until about 3:15 when there's a tea break. That's half an hour, so that's going to be a little bit of a rush. The third session will be 3:45 approximately to about 5:15. And then we're going to organise or invite people to speak from the floor. Many of the speakers will invite you to ask questions, so feel free to ask questions during the day. But at the end, I know there's some people here that have got 5 or 10 minutes that they like to stand up and say, so we'll welcome that as well. At about 6 o'clock, if we're still carrying on, we're going to break up into smaller, more focused groups to discuss different aspects of campaigning for legalisation, and that'll be over in the common room, and everybody's invited to come along as well. Before I introduce the first speaker, I'd like to explain a little bit about the Legalise Cannabis Alliance. We are a political party. We became a political party in 1999. We fought the local elections in Norwich in 1999 with 5 candidates. In September 1999, we had the honour of seeing the ex-Labour Mayor of Carlisle stand as a Legalised Cannabis Alliance candidate in the Kensington and Chelsea by-election against Michael Portillo. Although he only got 141 votes, it's considered really quite a lot of votes in an area like Kensington and Chelsea, which is the Tory stronghold. And he actually came 8th out of 18 candidates, so we did quite well. We found a lot more support on the street, actually. We thought we would get more votes, judging from the reaction of people on the street. Last year in May, we had 5 candidates again in the local elections in Norwich, and we had 1 candidate in the by-election in Romsey, another Conservative stronghold seat, which was actually won by the Liberal Democrats. And our candidate had about 460 votes, so he did very well. This year, we're hoping, at the moment, we've got 12 confirmed candidates for the parliamentary general election when it comes along, and possibly up to 100 if we can get the funds to support them. If we can get that number of candidates, we might even get a party political broadcast on the TV. Having said that, I'd like to explain that not all the speakers, in fact none of the speakers, are members of the Legalised Cannabis Alliance, because we don't run a membership. And we're fairly unique in that sense. The reason why is because we want to attract support from the other political parties, because we consider it a cross-party issue. And if you're a member of one political party and you join another political party, you might well get into trouble with the first political party. The alliance, we don't mind which political party you belong to. We just invite people to support us, endorse us, come along to conferences and so on. So today we've got speakers who come from the Labour Party, the Green Party and no party at all. One thing is that although we've got different political backgrounds and social backgrounds and career backgrounds, and we might differ in our approaches, we all agree on one thing, which is that the law banning cannabis and the punishment of people for growing plants at home or using it at home, at least that is a very, very wrong law. It achieves nothing, it alienates people, and so on. So we've come together under an alliance because we all want to see the law changed. You'll hear people talking about the policing side of it, the environmental side of it, the human rights side of it, the medical side of it, the social side of it, and so on. Cannabis is a plant, is a versatile plant. It's got many, many uses, and we want legalisation for all the uses. But yeah, basically we recognise that the presence of cannabis in the Misuse of Drugs Act is wrong. We recognise that prohibition has failed and it does more harm than good. The purpose of a law ought to be to protect people or society, and we ask how arresting people in their own homes or in private can possibly, for smoking a plant, can possibly protect either those people or society. We feel that the law should be protecting the consumers of cannabis in the same way as the consumers of beer, cigarettes or cabbages are protected. There's no quality control on cannabis. There's a lot of bad cannabis on the streets. It's polluted with all sorts of stuff from solvents. I saw a recipe and it was used 10% cannabis, 20% ground up leaf, some ground up coffee powder, powdered milk, beeswax, turpentine, mix it all together, heat it up and press it, and you can actually produce what a lot of people buy and pay extortionate amounts for. And that's probably one of the nicer forms of dirty cannabis that's on the street. There's other stuff that has bitumen, it has ketamine, it has substances we don't even know what it is, and we don't know the effects on the health of the people who consume it. We've asked the government what is in the cannabis that's confiscated, and they've told us THC. Well, we know there's THC in a lot of it, but we don't know. We want to know what the other stuff is. There's a program on the television called Living with the Enemy. It was a series, and there's a community in Exodus called the Exodus Community, and they quite openly grow and smoke cannabis. They were filmed, and there's been no repercussions. The film crew interviewed the local police, and the chief superintendent said that he considered that the job of the police was to protect human rights, and he didn't think that Exodus Community was threatening human rights by growing and consuming cannabis on their own premises. On the other hand, there's cases all around the country where there's a single person growing a few plants in their home and they get raided by the police and taken to the court, whether they're in wheelchairs, whether they're going blind, or whether they're healthy individuals who will, all of them, possibly be dragged to a court, be given a criminal record, have their careers ruined possibly. They won't be able to go to America, they won't be able to go to Australia, they won't be able to work for the civil service, they won't be able to join the armed forces, they won't be able to be a teacher, they won't be able to be a nurse. In fact, they'll more or less be some sort of, like an outcast. And what sense is there in that? So I think that we're beginning to find a common ground in the different angles that we come from. But I think that there are certain things that we won't deny, we can't deny, that we can unite on. For instance, cannabis is a plant. Whether it's a drug plant or whatever, it's a plant. It's also a plant which is indigenous to Britain. It is grown in Britain, as far as we know, from the year dot. In the 17th century, when Culpeper wrote his first herbal book, he said under hemp, which is the same plant, under hemp he said, there's no reason why I need to explain this, because every good person in the land knows all about it. He then went on to list the medicinal properties. So we know also that cannabis has therapeutic value, it has medicinal properties, despite all the governments that want to deny it. You can go to an individual person and they say it helps them. It's also got industrial uses. Over the centuries it was used to make rope, to make paper, to make oil, lubricants, and for lamps, maps, sails. Actually, the seed was ground up. It's incredibly nutritious. It was ground up and made into a porridge called gruel, and a lot of people survived on that. So it strikes me personally that cannabis is a lot to do with the progress of the human race, because if you go back 1,000 years or 2,000 years, we were writing on it, we were wearing it, We were tying our animals up with it. We were sailing our boats with it. We were oiling the machinery with it. Painters were painting on canvas, which is made from cannabis, it used to be, using paints which contain oil, which was made from cannabis. It was an essential part of the development of the human race, and for some reason, at the beginning of the last century, it was banned. And we've just asked the government, can you tell us why it was banned? And they say, it's because it's a dangerous drug. And yet the scientific reports, don't really agree that it's a dangerous drug at all. So we call upon the government again to tell us the truth. Why is cannabis still illegal? We know we're probably not going to get an answer, but we'll try when we stand for Parliament. We'll try to get the candidates to explain why they think it's illegal. We think that cannabis offers a solution to many of today's problems, and we think that the prohibition of cannabis has actually brought on a lot of those problems. So we're going to hear about some of those problems today, and later on as well we're going to hear about some of the solutions. And we also want to discuss what we all think we can do about changing this law. So we come from diverse backgrounds. What has been needed is some sort of alliance, some sort of umbrella under which we can stand. And we've had reasonable success with the LCA, but Lyndon Pugh, our first speaker, who's produced CCUs, he seems to have gone one step further, because he seems to have really united all the different aspects, even the people that don't want to get involved politically. And this is a lovely little newspaper. It's got news for people, particularly people who aren't on the internet, of what's happening around the world, what other countries are doing, and what's happening in Britain, and it's quite incredible. So I'm not going to waste any more time. I'm going to introduce our first speaker this morning, Lyndon Pugh.